Hey guys, Dark Humility here. You can always catch me at twitch.tv/Dark Humility and for 6 to 7 days a week of Diablo 2 action of all kinds, all varieties, all manners, and with D2R, of course, we're going to be running with a team on Hardcore, and it's going to be a good time on launch, and we'll keep playing Hardcore throughout. Today, though, we have one more Project Diablo 2 Season 3 guide on our Season 3 Hardcore Solo Self-Found Live Server Journey. This one is the Strafe Zon. Strafe Zon arguably is one of my favorite builds, period, in my opinion. If not the strongest, one of the very strongest builds in Season 3, just overall in terms of the cheapness of the gear, in terms of how powerful it is just with really powerful gear, and it's crazy. They buffed it a lot in season 3. They made the strafe have like an AoE, and it just hits so many monsters and it does so much damage. And yeah, you can hit from all the way back. You don't have to worry about much. Even in hardcore, it's relatively safe as long as you position in a strong manner overall. Very strong S tier build up in here. Of course, we'll be going over the stats, the skills, and the gear like normal, and then we'll be doing a vanilla area demo. I think I'll do chaos like normal, and we will then go into a Phlegethon map. And of course, she, like a lot of physical damage builds, can do pretty much any map, so she's very versatile and just very powerful overall. With 2 Valkyries as well, she has extra tanks. She can do it all. Matter of fact, you might even see a video up on YouTube where I even killed Ubers with a strafe/guided arrows on, so you can even kill Ubers with this build, but it's a little tough. I'd recommend trying like Jab if you're gonna run Amazon against Ubers, or something else maybe a little easier, but Jab is probably your best bet. So yeah, good stuff. Awesome. Let's go. I love this build. She's a beast. Alright. Strafe Zon. Let's go over the stats. Alright, so for the stats, we are going to have your standard, just enough strength to wear your gear. That's all you really need. My damage is not insanely high. Like with really good gear, once again, this is solo self-found. With really good gear, you can get like, I don't even know, probably like upwards of like 14k, 13k damage. But you definitely need really solid gear for that. But even with this much damage, it's insanely strong. So I wouldn't worry about that too much. But damage is pretty good. And in general, you're going to want a lot of attack rating, at least north of 10,000. Even especially if you have, if you don't have like ignored target defense or similar stats like that on your gear. It's pretty solid though. And then in order to do that, of course, and also to add to your own damage, you can put a lot of points into dexterity, which is what I did. Even on hardcore, so this is hardcore. Even on hardcore, I put a lot of points into dex to shore up that attack rating and whatnot. And of course, to shore up the damage. You can justify, of course, not putting any points into dexterity, and you can go full vitality, but you will do less damage, and you're gonna have to make sure to get your attack rating and your charms if that's actually the case. And of course, for softcore, you can do the reverse. You can just put no points into vitality and put even more points into damage. Whatever you really want to do. Dexterity is really good though in general, and it's a very awesome stat in this character. And then, of course, you don't need any points of energy. You have, at least you have, as long as you have one source of mana leech, you are covered on this build 100%. And then we have a bunch of nice res. Don't necessarily need max res, but just make sure your res are maxed. I have some items of max res, so we have 80 cold res and 79 light res, which is nice. Hardcore for sure. And then just make sure your res are at least maxed. I wouldn't worry too much about stacking res on hardcore even, because you're usually so far back that conviction aura should not be able to reach you. If it does, back up. That's all I gotta say. This build though, you got a lot of range on the monsters though, so in general just make sure you got max res. And then damage reduction is very good in hardcore. I wouldn't focus it insanely hard. Make sure you at least have some to take some big ranged hits. You don't get amped too often either, but some monsters with some dual aura with ranged attacks like spears and whatnot, and succubbi balls and whatnot will still hit insanely hard. So try to have at least maybe north of 20% DR in hardcore, and on softcore you can go 0% DR, just max out your damage. Focus all that damage, of course. And then we got some hit recovery. Once again, we shouldn't be melee moding, but even if we do, the monsters can either get knocked back or they can be stunned in hit recovery because you hit them so fast with strafe. So once again, not super important on the defensive stats, even on hardcore, simply because this build has so much safety built into it along with a ton of damage. FCR, not important. Whatever FCR we have is the fortitude, so yeah, not important. You don't use FCR. Fast run walk is good. Enough attack speed to hit max frame. You only need 18% attack speed with a 15 fanaticism aura on this build on the Windforce to reach max attack speed on strafe, so that's pretty cool. And it just depends on the weapon though. For Buriza, you need a lot of attack speed, plus even with fanaticism, so of course Buriza comes with a lot of attack speed, so either way it works pretty good. And then make sure you get that dual leech, at least some of each leech, but having a lot of life leech means you can pretty much instantly heal as long as you hit something, and no matter where your HP is at, you can instantly heal. So that's nice because the only way you can really die on this build then is getting one shot, so that's actually kind of nice. Gurks is really good. Yeah, Gurks is really solid on that build. Dad be dead for sure. Sorry, not this build. Gurks, you can't wear shields on this build. Alright. 100% projectile pierce. What's up? 100% projectile pierce, so that is a key for this build. Buriza has it built in. This bow does not have a pierce corruption, and I put points in a pierce in this case. Just make sure you have 100% projectile pierce. That is important. And then magic fun, whatever you can really stack on this build. One of the main weaknesses, besides the amount of crazy damage and the mobility you can have on this build and the safety and whatnot, is that MF can be tough to stack on this build, but you can get upwards of 200 with the correct items, so, or even higher, so it just depends. Right now we don't have necessarily the most optimal gear for that, so it's a little different. Alright, anyway, good stuff on the stats. I think you guys get the basics. On softcore you can just stack them into decks to get more damage, and it's always a good time. And of course, even on hardcore I do the same just to get AR and damage, and you'll be set to go. Alright, skills. Alright, in general, you want to max... Okay, let's start with the obvious. Let's max strafe. So, you max strafe, period. For single targets like bosses that have a ton of defense or otherwise, that block a lot, or they have so much defense that they're kind of hard to hit even with strafe, guided arrow always hits. The great news about this ability is you don't have to put any more than 1 point into it, and it will still be more effective against uber bosses and whatnot, even with just 1 point, than strafe itself. But strafe will be way more effective against all the surrounding enemies. You can put points into magic arrow if you want to empower guided arrow a little bit versus certain targets, but it's not needed. Alright, basics. Max Valkyrie. Max Valkyrie. That's right, chat. Max Valkyrie. Valkyrie. If you cast the Valkyries on your swap where you have your plus skills, you get a pretty high level Valkyrie here. As you can see, I can hit level 27 Valkyrie on swap. And of course, this is where you also cast your Heart of the Wolverine if you have Wisp Projector. And overall, it's just pretty strong stuff. The Valkyries are awesome tanks. If you're using an Act 1 Mercenary like me for higher mobility with Vigor Aura, which is really good for safety, especially on hardcore, you're definitely going to want some meat shields in the front. So those frontline tanks are very important. You can even put more passive GCs in your GCs if you want to get that level 30 Valkyrie, or get more plus skills on your gear, and to have 3 Valkyries, which is even safer. Alright. Dodges. Basically, you put all the remainder of your points here after you're done with these skills. So I have a pretty high dodge chance when I'm attacking, which is really nice, because that means even when even though I don't have a shield and I don't have block or anything, I effectively have 33% block for free with no block animation and no dodge animation like in vanilla. So it's really good stuff. And then, you know, just having maybe at least a couple points in it here to have a decent block chance, quote unquote, when you're moving around, and for some extra faster block. Another thing you're going to want to make sure you do on a Strafe Zon is you're going to want to max critical strike. This is a chance to do double damage, and then with the deadly strike on your gear, you can also have additional chance on top of that. So if this roll fails, then you have more chance to do double damage. So that's really good stuff. Critical strike is really important. Depending on your gear, you might need to put more points into Pierce. I had to on this build, but it depends on the gear. So if you're wearing Buriza, you can just put 1 point into this because you already have max Pierce. So this is something you definitely want to hit max Pierce and just figure it out based on your gear. Of course, if you're not putting max Pierce, you can put more points into Decoy even for like a decoy throw out. You can even put more points into like other things like slow movement. Of course, more dodge and evade is always nice, or more points into penetrate. So penetrate, of course, is another very important skill. In the case of penetrate, you get a lot of attack rating and you get negative target defense. So I didn't put as many points as you might want to put into it, but it depends on your attack rating situation. So you can max it, you can go kind of maxing it would be really nice, especially against things like really tanky, really high defense monsters like in Uber boss areas or in certain maps like tier 3 maps. So that's always good stuff. Excellent. All right, so yeah, there's a lot of wiggle room in the passives. That's basically all you should know about that. And that in general, you always want to max Valkyrie and max critical strike, and then the rest of them are kind of depending on what you have in gear and how high your attack rating is. All right. Next, we have gear. Let's go over the Mercenary first, though. So for Mercenary, there's basically 2 major options, I would say, on a Strafe Zon. You go my option right now, where we're going Vigor Aura Act 1 Mercenary, which is also a very safe Mercenary as well. She always stays alive, pretty much, and she keeps you alive by, if there's really extra fast monsters that bum rush you and destroy your Valkyries, you have enough movement speed to run back, and you don't have to worry about getting overwhelmed by the monsters. So that's one of the reasons why I like this approach. And then of course you can put a Faith Bow, and you can put a Templar Zon to still get Might Aura and Fanaticism Aura, which is what I did. But if you want even stronger damage or higher damage, and you're looking just for pure damage, and mobility isn't the main concern, a Beast on a Act 5 Mercenary will give you even higher damage because they have much higher level Might Aura. I really wouldn't go anything else in this build. You don't need... I mean, I guess you can go like Pride, Might Aura Act 2 Mercenary for some defensiveness, but Fanaticism's just so good for like the extra attack speed, so you don't need more attack speed on your gear. So probably not going to be the best option most of the time. Alright, without further ado though, let's check out the Mercenary's gear just so you guys can see what's going on here. Got pretty lucky on that roll once again with the Faith Great Bow. Got a nice Templars in there with Might Aura and Fanaticism. And then another thing you're probably going to want, especially if you're not pre-buffing with Demon Limb. I'm pre-buffing with Demon Limb, but you can put like extra life leech on the Mercenary if you want instead. But generally just want attack speed at this point. You can kind of just put life leech, attack speed, damage, res, all those nice, beautiful stats to help her survive. On top of that, cannot be frozen is really good so she doesn't get stuck. Helps her move around. And then, just physical damage reduction as well as a very good stat, so PDR. But once again, she kind of stays back, and you have Vaporize, so It's not insanely important, the rest of her gear, except for whatever auras she's giving you and making sure she has some basic survivability stats. Of course, the enchant fire is nice. If you don't have demon limb, that will give you, she'll enchant you sometimes when she hits stuff, which is kind of neat. Wow, that's a beautiful slam. I got a +1 on an Oculus yesterday. No, wait, 2 days ago. That was sick. Yeah, movement speed is sick for sure. Yeah, Vigor Aura is very sick stuff. Alright, so, and then let's go over our gear, which is very important. So, a lot of people might think that Brand Rinward might be the way to go because of that crazy amount of Bone Spears, but unless you're able to get the Bone Spear synergies, the Bone Spears are not very strong. If you can get the synergies for them, I'd actually recommend using Brand, or I'd recommend using like Strafe with an Endless Hail, and then maybe the Bone Rune Word, for instance, on like a Necromancer, and then you get the Bone Spear synergies on a Necromancer, and that's actually going to be, if you use a Strafe Necromancer, that's actually maybe a better use of the Bone Spear synergies on some of those items. That being said, though, you can use like Bone and you can go Brand as well if you like the look of it. It's really cool. It's really fun. But realistically speaking, if you're looking for power on this build, you're looking for bows that have a lot of enhanced damage, a lot of physical damage. That's where most of your damage is going to come from. So the bows that are going to be better on a Strafe Zon are still going to be the good bows that are good on a multi-shot zone, which are Windforce and Buriza. Those are going to be your best options. There's, of course, also Eagle Horn. Demon Machine is also okay, but once again, one thing to note about Demon Machine is Demon Machine has multi-shot, and you might notice multi-shot has no synergies. Now, multi-shot is okay and whatnot. It definitely is. Demon Machine's okay, but Demon Machine still doesn't have a lot of just straight-up damage. So Demon Machine is also okay, but some of these options aren't going to have quite as much damage as this, though. So we have a pretty sick Windforce here that I self-corrupted not too long ago. I actually found this literally like yesterday, the day before, I don't know. And I corrupted it, so I was like, okay. Stick a couple of Ohm runes in there, put a negative requirement jewel in there so I don't have to get as much strength. And one with ED as well, so ED negative requirements and 6 minimum damage. So yeah, it's a pretty good Windforce. So obviously you can get 4 sockets though, it can be even stronger, it can be even higher. You can have even better stuff in it, of course, but it's a pretty good Windforce. It's pretty decent. And of course, the other major option I just talked about is Buriza. Got to upgrade that Buriza, of course. And this one got a really sick corruption on it. And of course, it has way more damage. As you can see, the damage values are quite a bit higher than Windforce. But the wind-up on Buriza is pretty slow. And that's the major weakness, despite it having a ton of damage. So in some ways, this thing just fires like a cannon, but it's a little slower to move around. So it does do more damage than this bow does, but this bow will allow you to move around quicker and to attack quicker, so I don't know. It's the jury's kind of out. I play with both of these things, and it's kind of hard to tell which one's actually better. This one seems to be better on maps that have a lot of physical resistance, and then this one seems to be better on maps with not as much physical resistance. So that seems to be the major determinant because of that negative enemy physical res stat on it. And of course, this gives you straight up Pierce, so that there is a bit more build freedom also with the Buriza somewhat. So, yeah. Oh man, someone just died. Station Officer. Barbarian Hardcore Leaderboard. Yep. Yeah, let's get some Fs in the chat. Level 95 Barb going down the drain. Happens though. It's the hardcore life. Alright, Mana Leech. But yeah, so anyway, this is also giving us Mana Leech, and another major feature of Windforce that I should talk about is that you only need the attack speed on the bow itself, and you're hitting max frame with Fanaticism Aura. And it's also easier to hit max frame even without Fanaticism Aura, if you want to go that route on a Windforce. Another thing about Windforce is that it has knockback. Knockback means the monsters are basically never going to touch you. This is a very safe option on hardcore. The Windforce is definitely the safer option, but this thing is probably a little bit stronger overall, especially on maps with some more physical res, which a lot of maps have physical resistance, so That's a pretty big deal. Alright, anyway, that's enough about the weapon. I think we all kind of get the idea of what options are available and what are the strongest options for just straight up ED and damage. As for armor, enhanced damage, Chains of Honor, Fortitude, enhanced damage, Jewels, even Two Throw I guess would be okay, but Two Throw, I'd rather just have enhanced damage, unless it rolls like 3-socketed Two Throw, you could use that. Good night, Vibrant. Get it. Hey, morning. Thank you, AP. How you doing? I'm doing well, Clinto. Hope you're doing well. We're actually making a video right now, so I'm ignoring chat. Rip. Okay, anyway. This is really good for all res, of course, too, in life. It's good. It has good defensive stats and fortitude. So does Chains of Honor. On hardcore, those are probably your better options, unless you also go like Tyrell's Might. Tyrell's Might would also be insane, but I haven't found one, so Tyrell's Might would be crazy potentially, especially if you get the ED jewels in there on top of that. If you like puzzle box it, you get like 3 sockets. So there's definitely way more insane options for sure in the armor slot. But in general, you're going for enhanced damage and survivability stats. On hardcore, the survivability stats take precedent. You could even go shaft stop on hardcore if you want to be even safer. So that's another option. Vampire Gaze. Vampire Gaze, basically I need the DR, so Crown of Ages would I think be the most ideal option on hardcore. Vampire Gaze is okay though because it's giving me dual leech and it's giving me a bunch of other things. This is not an insane Vampire Gaze though, and I'm getting no enhanced damage off of this, which is kind of lame. You can get like Veil of Steel, which will give you a lot of enhanced damage. You can go Giant Skull. There's a lot of options that give enhanced damage, so just keep that in mind. And of course, we can put some ED jewels in there as well. So that's where maybe some of our damage is definitely lacking. And then Atma's Scarab. This thing is mandatory on this build. If you're running a Strafe Zon, you always want this. The Strafe passes through targets so quickly that 7% chance might not sound like a lot, but it ends up proccing it very quickly and reliably on monsters. And that's a very high level amplify damage. So you're getting almost like negative 20 physical res off that, which is pretty insane. No matter how you build this character, you want Atma's Scarab at his best in slot 100%. Attack rating, poison res, and then of course the most important stat, which is that amp damage on striking. You can use the battle cry on this if you're struggling with a physical immune. I actually have this on. I actually have it hotkeyed, so that's kind of nice stuff. And besides that, though, you're getting the battle command, you're getting the extra ED off of battle command, and you're getting the extra life and mana off of battle orders, and 2 skills off of this wall as well. Of course, this is where you want to cast your Valkyries, and also where you want to cast your Heart of the Wolverine, because you actually have plus skills in your swap. Alright. Gloves. So gloves, you have a couple of options. If you're running a lot of chaos and a lot of demons, or just running a lot of areas in general, you can definitely run Laying of Hands. You can run Steel Rend, but Steel Rend has so much strength requirement, you probably don't want to do that. This, you can also run Drax for even more life leech, but you don't need that much life leech on this build. So what I'd recommend is going probably Laying of Hands or Soul Drainers, which is my personal favorite because you get that negative enemy physical res on it, which is very important for increasing your speed of mapping. Of course, it has a lot of life on it as well, and you get dual leech, so even if you are not using Windforce and using this, you still have mana leech, so, and you don't even need mana leech anywhere else. You could just put that on there and you got mana leech. This is nice for pre-buffing. You can pre-buff some extra attack rating with this, and it's free. Having a demon limb on a physical damage character is never a bad idea unless you are a sorceress, and then you don't need it. And then Wisp Projector 3 Heart of the Wolverine. In general, Heart of the Wolverine is just really good. Having a Heart of the Wolverine gives you a lot of extra damage and attack rating. So it's pretty good stuff. Definitely gives you more percent damage than, for instance, like a BK ring, but you can also use like a BK set ring. This gives you MF, of course, as well. and it gives you an extra skill, but BK set ring would give you some more DR. Arguably, that'd actually be a safer option for me. But yeah, I don't know. Wisp Projector, having at least one of them is pretty nice, though. It's just extra damage. It's pretty free. It's more damage than BK set ring. It's anything else. A lot of other options as well. And then, of course, you could also go like a rare crafted ring with dual leech. You can go with minimum, maximum damage. You can get like AR. You can get like dual stat rings. You can go pretty nuts on it. So there's definitely other options there. Especially if you don't like reviving the Sage every once in a while. Because I'm not using Buriza currently, of course, there's a lot of options here if you're not. You can use like Razor Tail as well. You can use Verdungos, and if you want the damage option, you can use Nosferatu's Coil for the extra deadly strike. But yeah, I needed Pierce because I needed enough Pierce to hit 100%, so we have a Pierce Corrupted String of Ears. This is giving me damage reduction as well, and life leech, and magic damage reduction, so pretty solid belt for hardcore there. And Raven Frost, faster unlock. Really good, stacks really well with the Vigor Aura from the Mercenary. Good corruption. But in general, you want cannot be frozen somewhere, so make sure you have a ring or a boots with cannot be frozen. Usually that's what you're going to want to go for on this build. Or, I don't know, you can get it on the helm, I guess, as well. But yeah, in general, Dex, attack rating, cannot be frozen, all very good stats for this character. Raven Frost is definitely very solid. And then Gore Riders. Gore Riders, very good. Gore Riders, Deadly Strike, Crushing Blow, Open Wounds. That being said, I'd actually recommend not using Gore Riders. I lost my War Traps on the other Strafe Zon that desync. There's a major desync that just killed her instantly. And War Traps give her an extra 15 to 25 damage. Arguably, that's better than some extra Deadly Strike %, but on top of the crit strike, but it's kind of hard to say. I would say the Word Traps in general would be better, though. You'd also get MF off that, though, so we don't have many more in my solo self-found, though, so that kind of sucks. Haven't found too many of those things, so it's just the way it is. And I definitely stick to some kind of physical damage boots, so like Gore Rider or Word Traps. And then, in general, if you're on Softcore, you just want to stack as much max damage in your GCs as possible. So you're definitely gonna want to go with these max damage GCs 100%. You could even use bow GCs, but they're not going to be as good as the max damage AR GCs usually. So max damage AR GCs are going to be pretty solid. And of course, you can stack res as needed and life as needed, as I do as well, because this is hardcore, so I need more life and res. But if you're just playing with Softcore, just get that damage. Just get all that damage in AR. And then 40 MF Geeds, just to have some MF, because we don't have much at all. And a torch. Which you're going to want a torch. And if you have an Annie, even better. We do not have an Annie, though. Season kind of running out of time on that solo self-found. D2R is coming up, so. But it's good stuff. Very solid character. Very strong. Alright, so now it's time for... Let's show her in action. That's what we're waiting for, right? We want to see her actually kill stuff. I went over the Mercenary. It'll be on YouTube. It's in the VOD now. If you guys missed the Mercenary, it's fine. Exclamation S3HC Strafe Zon. If you guys want to see the 1-minute gear clip in the chat, you guys can pull that up yourself as well. What's up, Oliveira? How you doing? Exclamation S3HC Strafe Zon. Command is in the stream title as well. Saracen's is pretty solid. It is. Until you can get your hands on an Atmos. If you don't have an Atmos, by the way, it's kind of hard. This build, not gonna lie, it's kind of hard to reliably get. Yeah, that was physical of me in there. Rocking that battle cry can definitely help sometimes. Yeah, it definitely helps to to get like amplified damage on the Mercenary, but it's really hard sometimes for the Mercenary to actually proc it. That's why you don't want to usually use Reaper's Toll, or there's actually a lot of options you kind of would think might work pretty well in this build, but they don't, like Gavel of Pain and Reaper's Toll. Simply because you run so fast and you kill things pretty fast to the point where the Mercenary can't even catch up. So the Mercenary, you want to provide auras and not like amplify damage on this build. You're also not repositioning or teleporting into the monsters, so it definitely makes for a pretty weird interaction if you try to do that. So yeah. You could use, I guess, well, you would think Wrathbow would work, but I even tried that too when I tested an open beta, or closed beta. And the problem with Wrathbow is that usually you want a bigger aura Mercenary, right? Well, you end up outrunning your Mercenary by a lot, so it still doesn't work. Even with a Wrathbow, it's still pretty ineffective. Atmos is just too good though. Like, I wouldn't complain, you know. Atmos is just like way too good on this build, so. Alright, so this is one of her stronger areas. Like most builds that do physical damage, Chaos is a breeze. Physical and magic damage do very well in here, and we're just gonna demo her killing some vanilla content. As you can see, the Windforce twisters are coming out. She's just shredding everything instantly. She's insanely strong. Alright. Give me my Valkyries back. Give it back! Good stuff. So as you can see, everything just kind of melts. And the crazy part about this is if you're standing perfectly still, Buriza does even more damage. Like I said, the advantage of this bow mainly is that you can move around a bit as you fire. So it's a little safer in hardcore. But yeah, Buriza is just insane. And this Buriza specifically just does so much damage. I'm not going to be demoing it today, but trust me when I say that. There's way more damage you can get on this build. Suffice it to say, though, maybe showing her not at her very strongest is maybe a good thing, so that you can see just how much power this build has, even without the most ridiculous gear you can possibly get. Alright. Now, some of this gear is rather basic stuff. Alright, Alright, so now let's do a map. She's good at a lot of maps, to be fair. Physical damage is pretty nice. Oh wow, that's dangerous. So let's demo this map for a little bit here. What's up, Pilgrim? How you doing? And as you can see, she is a monster. Crazy, crazy stuff. Oh, nice. That's a good map. So as you can see, she has no issues. The monsters get knocked back. There's some pretty dangerous things going on here, though. Definitely watch the throwing monsters. Throwing spears. But since we're not amped, we shouldn't take fatal damage, so we should be okay. We have a decent amount of DR too. A lot of powerful monsters. Yeah, I would say... Okay, I would say that when you have really good gear, multi gets closer in strength to Strafe, but when you have really bad gear, Strafe is way stronger than multi, 100%. And I've done a lot of testing to confirm that. Way stronger. So if your gear is kind of subpar, you know, mine's like maybe mid-grade, I would say, but if your gear is like really subpar, you're definitely going to want to use Strafe over multi-shot, 100%. Especially in Season 3. With their changes and whatnot to these skills, it's a no-brainer now. Yeah, as you can see, Strafe, especially in these narrow corridors, tends to do very well. Maps with lower physical resistance tends to be better as well. Weaknesses of Strafe is that when there's like a lot of geography, like a lot of doorways and things of that nature, Strafe tends to struggle quite a bit more. And when the monsters are like surrounding you or they're coming at you from all sides, that's when it's a little bit weaker. It definitely takes longer to clear them. In a map like this one, though, she has a pretty good time for the most part. Map is fairly linear. You know, Throne of Insanity is also kind of similar. This is a tier 2. And yeah, she has a good time here. All the knockback in the world. Don't have to worry about the charger zombies ever hitting you. Nice and safe, insanely powerful. We are amped at the moment though, so we do have to kind of watch it. Make sure we don't run too far ahead. The only thing you ever really have to worry about on this build is the one shot, so that's about it. Because otherwise it'll just be leeching. Can't leech anything. Yeah, you see these archers here? This is what I was talking about. Definitely the greatest enemy in the whole entire game is this weird geography right here. See, I can't even hit the monsters properly, so it's like messing me up. What a joke, am I right? Can I please show the Mo? S3HC Strafe Zon! Exclamation. Type that in the chat. Or copy paste it from the stream title. We actually just went over all the gear. We're actually making a mini guide here for YouTube. So you guys can check out this awesome build. But yeah, even on solo self-bound, you can acquire really good gear for this. It's at least decent. Once again though, you can get way higher damage on this build. And just with my Buriza alone as well, if you're looking for something a little bit more adventurous. But yeah, it's crazy. Even without it, it's still crazy strong, so even with just 7k damage. It's hard to say. At the very high end of the gear spectrum, like, this character's even more insane, so it's just so ridiculous. The only thing that Sorceress would have on her is mobility. I mean, that's the only thing a lot of builds might have on her is because they can teleport and whatnot. That's the main weakness of the Zon in general. Unless, of course, you have Enigma on some Zons, but the Zon doesn't get really FCR, so the only item with FCR you would have to replace to wear Enigma, so not a good stat. In general, though, it don't matter.
I can already tell that I'll be your best friend in this forsaken camp.
Yeah, it's just very nice, safe, and reliable. Very, very strong build. Hey, Arthur Radley, thank you so much for the follow. Welcome to the Colton Xander Stay. And yeah, I mean, as you can see, I mean, the Vigor Aura is giving me a lot of freedom to kind of move close to the monsters and then move back away, and yeah, that's a lot of good stuff, you know. I have a lot of mobility, which is really good. Looks like this game's gonna end though, which is fine. Wasn't planning on, I think, demoing the whole map, but yeah, it's fun. She can also range bosses very well, though, suffice it to say. So, like, this boss is gonna be no problem for her, no problem at all. You notice how when I'm in these archers here, how Strafe is kind of weird and doesn't hit the monsters? That's her greatest enemy, is the geography. So sometimes you have to get in front of it and just use it to your advantage. That's the main weakness of this skill here, is that it auto-aims and you can't really tell it not to attack things over there. Just doesn't work that well. Hey look, another water walks, damn. That's pretty insane.
I can't carry anymore.
So did I switch from medium to PD2, and why? If you want a genuine, awesome, fully loaded game with endgame experience that is still very much Diablo 2, then you should play PD2. All the quality of life you could possibly want. And also a pretty beautiful look. All that stuff is good stuff. Now, as far as Medium XL is concerned, if you want a whole new adventure that is very different from the original Diablo 2, but a very cool game in its own right, stick with Medium. But, you know, I would try it all, man. If you've never tried this before, you should. Yeah, it's gonna cut me out. GG. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, you have a bit of a faster recoil on Windforce, which means you can move around more, so that's good stuff. So yeah, the map ended for sure. No problem. GG. That is it for the mapping demo, though. I'm sure you guys get the idea. Really sick build, really effective, even without the craziest corruptions or craziest items. Just imagine how much more damage you can get, though, on Softcore if you just go the full damage approach as well. She can do insane amounts of damage. And she can just absolutely shred. So, it's up to you to see how this goes. I've also tested Buriza, and you can get closer to like 9k strafe and with even higher minimum damage, and it hits really, really hard. Of course, you can see me killing Ubers with that weapon in another YouTube video, and it's good stuff. But yeah, let me know in the comments below, though, how strong of a Strafe Zon you've been able to create and just how ridiculous this build is. Also, let me know if you've used Strafe on other characters, such as like on a Bone Necro, using the Bone Rune Word and Endless Hail. Also, let me know if you've used Brand on this character to cast Bone Spears. You know, that's always a fun thing. There's all kinds of fun things you can do with Strafe, even if they're not necessarily the most effective approaches. Strafe is freaking awesome. But anyway, like and subscribe if you enjoyed this overview video of a Strafe Zon on PD2. Strafe is stronger than ever now in Season 3 PD2. I would say for sure an S tier build. You can even make it with trash gear. It's just insane. The damage is crazy. So enjoy it, kill everything, be a boss, smash it. You can always catch me at www.twitch.tv/darkhumility and for 6 to 7 days a week of Diablo 2 content. Of course, we'll be playing D2R once again September 23rd when it comes out. Also, for LOD build guides and LOD information, make sure to check out Maxroll, d2.maxroll.gg. Anyway, kill it, guys. Destroy it. Have fun on this insanely awesome, insanely powerful build. Good for hardcore, softcore, and everything in between. Anyway, I'll see you guys, of course, next time for another guide, I am sure. GG. Let's get it.